I've been thinking about blockchain actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, just kind of, I work with blockchain now.
Okay.
But, you know, as we've said many times, blockchain solves problems that CD needs. Federation solves some of those problems, but the anti-censorship feature, I think, is one of the main ones. I don't think, you know, with the CD, you don't have a double spend problem, right? So that's one of the problems blockchain solves.
Yeah. We don't care about that. I keep saying, you know, when you make a claim, you should say which claims you're aware of and referring to and replacing or pretending to update. And that means it becomes a graph structure. So there's explicit reference to past claims. So that means the question of collisions is absolutely non-relevant. It has become a CRDT, like the claim may be missing if you're out of order. So you wait for it to happen, but there's no collision because you explicitly say what you depend on. Then that makes it a bit like a truth maintenance machine. And yeah, so that's why I'm not thinking of coordination algorithms.
I mean, how does that work though with the question of censorship? Without by censorship, I actually mean not censorship, but corrupting history. So I guess it's corruption proof.
Yes.
Corruption attacks.
That is a valid question. I do think, and here I'm using the model of Holochain, for example, or many distributed web systems, that it should be easy enough to require each claim to be signed. In which case and if you have, how should I put it? Have you read Holochain? The Holochain doc?
No, I might have started reading it a long time ago.
Really worth getting into it, because basically the problem with blockchain is that it tries to assume linearity and it tries to enforce linearity.
Yeah, it doesn't assume, it enforces. Yes,
it enforces, and that's not necessary. Like you can have, if you think of your dependency as a graph instead of a queue, and you can have multiple individual queues, but each refers to one another in a graph form, you don't care about linearity. It's a false problem. And you still can have blockchain properties within each individual chain, which then keeps the blockchain-ish property, like the signature. You can sign each individual chain. Now, if somebody crafts a fake chain after the fact, what you'll find is that, well, nobody was aware of this in the dependency graph. Funny that.
Yeah, I agree with that to the extent that I am able to think through it right now. I mean, I haven't put a lot of thought into CRDT distributed structure. So I'm not sure. I haven't thought of the vectors of attack for that sort of thing. But you know, it's certainly not necessarily the same problem that blockchain is trying to solve in terms of single spend, double spend problem.
And certainly this is something that the holochain people have been thinking about a lot. So expect that too. I really recommend reading into it.
The other thought about blockchain is that well, there's one part which is corrupting in the sense of deleting information, right? You don't want people to be able to delete information. Federation has a lot of the same effect as shared ledger in that sense, right? In that it's the data, nobody owns any piece of data, right? It's been distributed.
Yes.
So there's that. The other thing I've been thinking about, this came up today listening to a podcast again, is like just reimagining the trajectory of a project like this. If I were, you know, if I were younger, didn't have a family, probably, you know, if I were one of those people that like lives for their project and wanted to make it succeed, the blockchain story makes so much sense because, you know, I was listening to, for example, the people from Solana today, and you know, each blockchain has an endowment essentially of hundreds of millions of dollars of people who invested tons of money to make that ecosystem happen, and they have that money to spend on projects that they think will reinforce the ecosystem, build it up, or, you know, create the killer app for that blockchain, right? So they have, and DAOs are created to spend money on developers to do things that, you know, have a net positive effect on the community there, right?
Yep.
This is a project that I could easily see getting that kind of money, right? So the fact that it's tangentially related to blockchain because of some features, some overlapping features, and a lot of overlap in terms of, especially like the libertarian nature of blockchain, right? The whole crypto world has a very strong libertarian bent to it. Right?
Yep.
You know,
one reason I'm mostly not interested in it.
Except that, you know, I'm really excited about the idea of the canonical debate because I think it solves the conundrum, the problem of censorship, right? Which is that, you know, free speech is harmful, right? And therefore some degree of censorship might be helpful. But the problem with that is that in principle, it's just a bad idea because there's no, you know, who gets to decide and where do you draw the lines, and there's no stopping it. You know, once somebody's got the power, there's no guarantee that they're going to use it for good, right? So I think that the CD, to some degree, solves the problem of the harm or the danger of free speech.
I see what you say, and I have pros and cons about this, but I agree that it is important to have this. And but the point is, there's been, and that's why I really insist on looking at Holochain, because Holochain is a more cooperative view and more collective action view of the blockchain problem. And they have, I think, thought about it from a different angle.
How so?
Because again, there's everybody has their own blockchain, but they're bound by common rules, which are in the what they call the zone DNA. Doesn't matter. But what is very, everybody has their own blockchain, but you're guaranteeing that you're following the same rules as everybody else in a given sub holochain space. And they do code signing to make sure that you're running the same code and actually executing the same validation rules. So it does have a more, let's agree on rules and play by them. In a way, maybe that's libertarian, and it's still bottom up, but I think it's more oriented towards let's create things together and let's agree on
Well,
common action.
yeah, I
And I
think
guess that's the DAO
that's not
space.
anti-libertarian. That's not anti-libertarian.
No, it's not. But I do think the ethos, the basic ethos, they're very much more in the common space than in the libertarian space.
Right. But yeah, I mean that's the point though, is that if the CD could solve the problem of not needing to censor ideas, then
Oh, absolutely.
Any block, I see that some blockchain project would take a liking to the project and invest a lot of money.
It could be. It could
We were
be.
dedicated to building on their
Well, and in a way, I guess it's part of why one reason I'm paying attention to the distributed web, for the same reason, but with distributed web instead of blockchain. And yeah, you're right. There's more money.
But the distributed web, though, as I understand it, I don't understand it very much, but it's just decentralization of the web, right?
There's many things that are called distributed web, and decentralization is interesting. Let me think about this a bit. One second, I'm thinking how to express this. Distributed web gives me, it is distributed in the sense, yeah, it's, okay, for example, the lambdas, like a lot of people speak of serverless, like Lambda functions. And that's, for me, not distributed web, because serverless is in a way ultra centralized. Distributed web, it's more like, how's it called? Well, it's DHT, right? It's distributed hash tables. So there's no centralized server anywhere. It's all peer-to-peer. So yeah, it's, you could call it the web distributed, but it's data structures. It's, can we do the data structure without a centralized server? Can we do that data structure coordination without a centralized server? Can we do consensus without a centralized server? And blockchain does that too, but it's more, it kind of re-centralizes the decentralized structure, and distributed web tries to make that not necessary. I don't know if I'm expressing myself well.
This would be an interesting exercise in definitions, right? What are the distinguishing claims of decentralized web, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume that it includes decentralized DNS, right?
Some versions of it do. Yeah. The equivalent of in
but what
IPF,
is the goal of distributed web?
It's to have collaboration without a central server, in a way. I'm making it simple, but everybody hosts their own stuff and shares the hosting of their own stuff with everybody. So nobody owns the serving, and nobody has to own the, you don't have to have your own system online necessarily, but it becomes resilient. Everybody's serving it.
Right. It's
And
like,
yes,
what is the problem it's trying to fix? Is it central control? Is it
central control is the problem it's trying to fix, but also,
availability, or is it?
yeah, availability and link rot, right? A lot of people are struggling with, okay, that server is dead. We don't have that information anymore. And if it's being put in the distributed web, it's
So it's like IPFS for everything web, in the sense that you know.
Yeah.
I get it.
And then there's processing above that,
I
right?
mean, you'll still have link rot, right?
No. Well, yes, because of pinning, right? But anything that's in demand will never go away.
Well, because of pinning, but because links evolve.
No, that's the
Because
thing. With the CID, you don't care about DNS. If the server dies, the name dies, doesn't matter.
what's the CID for? I guess it was services, right?
Well,
Services
okay, that
every
CID is for
time
static files, and then you have IPNS for it's like the equivalent of DNS. You have a name and you get the CID from it, and then you're right.
but-
When
but,
you get into services,
evolve.
it gets interesting. Well, the point is, you don't have services. The edge does the computing and publishes a new result. Like you have a distributed database, for example, like Orbit or distributed data structures. And so you're publishing the new result on the IPNS, but there's still stuff evolving there. It's not accomplished. Let's put it this way. But there's definitely amazing, like if you look at what the Fission, for example, is doing. Now they have web native, the whole file system with encryption and ACLs built on top of IPFS. So you can basically, you're running your application in your browser, you're changing your IPFS, like you're using IPNS to say, okay, here's my new version of my system head with the latest operations done. And you have ACLs that make that publicly available to others. And so you have all you need for a distributed file-based application. Now the next step for them is to make a distributed database. And again, they're thinking database very much on the data log model, where you have asserted and retracted triples, which fits the model better than a relational, but it's a database. You have this in the head of the triple triples or intuples actually in the case of data log. But the head of the triple tree changes all the time with IPNS, and so you get the latest version. I will have to go to my next conference. Apologies.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, can we get money from blockchain is not a bad question to ask. I'm more interested in getting money from the commons, because one thing about the blockchain is, no, that's not true. They're okay with open source, but like they kind of want to own things.
No.
But yeah, no, you're right. It's not that much of an issue. I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, in fact, they see it, like I said, they see the way to getting rich, even though they try not to pose it that way. It still is a profit motive. Like, you have to be really naive to think that they're not thinking that way. So they want their blockchain to win and thrive. So part of it is a technical interest, but part of it is certainly a financial interest, and everyone's got a token attached to it. They want theirs to be the one that's used to boost the value of the token. But the way to get there is just by making their thing more useful. And that means open source. That means just being used. That means whatever. So they'll give money to people who, with noble projects and objectives, if we help with the tool set and we help with the use on the system.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm certainly not in a position to go after that sort of thing. It's not gonna happen. I've got my own my own job, my day job. So just something I've been thinking about. All right. If you gotta go, feel free. I'll stick around and see if Stephen shows up.
Sorry, I got.
Okay. Yeah.
Apologies. The conference is starting and I'm in between things. But this is, let's continue this conversation. It's a conversation I do want to continue. It's because, yeah, getting people interested in this and buy in is absolutely valuable.
Right.
À bientôt.
All right.